there's also, a difference between what China says and what it does it not? Because it's here and, Premier Lee's here and he's talking about new beginnings and all of that, but this is just, an example of the old ways.
Well, as I said, indeed, it was entirely counterproductive. The fact that we are talking about this rather than talking about other parts of substance from the visit, positive aspects of the visit, how the governments of our two countries might be working through difficult issues, should underscore to those Chinese officials, and they should think long and hard about the fact that this type of distraction caused by inappropriate conduct on their behalf is counterproductive. And for our Prime Minister, for Mr Albanese, to come out and pretend that he didn't really know anything about it was really quite pathetic. Either his office failed miserably and owes him an apology for having misled or failed to brief him properly, or he owes the Australian people an apology for misleading them.
Okay, let's get to some of the announcements yesterday and see what you make of them all, Simon. I do want to start with this defence hotline with Canberra. That's to avoid military mishaps, particularly in the South China Sea. I mean, is that even possible?
Look, this is welcome insofar as it goes. It is similar to something that President Biden has established out of his dialogue with President Xi, and based upon something that the United States indeed had through much of the Cold War post the Bay of Pigs invasion with the old USSR, in terms of trying to ensure that when a problem occurs, you don't see an escalation that could lead to terrible and tragic conflict. But what we really need to ensure is that problems don't happen in the first place. And that necessitates China changing the way its military conducts itself through the region, not acting in such aggressive ways, not ignoring the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, but actually showing respect.
Can I just pull you up on that point? Because that leads me perfectly to this next point, Simon, because how does all of that work with this new law that took effect on the weekend, which allows China to detain foreigners for trespassing in the South China Sea, which it, of course, claims is its? Is there not double speak there?
Well, we would have grave concerns if China were seeking to detain foreigners from waters that have been found under UN conventions to not be Chinese waters.
Well, that started on Saturday.
Waters in which there should be rights for freedom of navigation. And so, again, it comes back to what are the first principles that we should expect and should be reinforcing in our dialogue and discussions with China, and that is respect for the territorial sovereignty of all nations as found and upheld by international law through fora that we regard and respect and that we expect that China and indeed other Southeast Asian nations expect China to uphold and respect as well.
Just a quick one before we go, Simon, because I'm out of time, but just this arrangement on visas here. You got any concerns that Australian tourists will freely be able to go to China and be able to return home safely?
But we'll see the details on how that works, but people should always follow travel advisories. They should exercise caution, and they should, of course, be particularly cautious about the way in which China responds to anyone who may seek to exercise what in Australia we consider to be free speech, but what in China is certainly not tolerated when it comes to.
Would you be telling your friends to go?
Government or its decisions. Look, I think for personal holidays, if you are conducting yourself the right way, then people will have to follow those travel advisories and act appropriately. But many people do travel in and out for personal holidays or that sort of.
Simon Birmingham, good to chat as always. We'll chat to you again soon.